This is America Daily, bringing you the best in truthful news updates and in-depth reports happening now. Welcome to America Daily. I'm Mark Jackson. Political correctness and social media censorship is nothing new. And now they have converged in the beauty pageant world. Pro-Trump beauty queen Kathy Jew lost her Miss Michigan World America title on July 18th for her, quote, insensitive tweets. Kathy wrote on Twitter, quote, "They stripped me of my Miss Michigan title due to my refusal to try on a hijab in 2018, my tweet about black-on-black gun violence, and, quote, insensitive statistical tweets." Today we hear from Kathy Jew herself. She shares her experience in the beauty pageant world, why she supports President Trump, and what she thinks of the 2020 Democratic candidates and their policies. Here's Tabitha Smiles with more on this story.
Today we speak with a beauty queen targeted for having conservative values and supporting Trump. Kathy Jew was born in China and moved to America at 5 years of age to Florida. Jew, a University of Michigan student and vice president of the school's college Republicans, had her crown taken away the day after it was placed on her head. Kathy, thank you for speaking with us today. How did you feel right after all this happened and all the media spotlight?
I feel really empowered right now. At first, this was a negative thing because they took away my crown, but now, it's been positive because there's been a lot of positive energy and people supporting me and my message.
So let's go back to the beginning of when you started to compete for the Miss World pageant and tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
Actually, this is never one of my plans for life. This is actually, a bucket list experience. So I just wanted to experience things and experience this, the pageant world. So one day I saw on Facebook, I was like, oh, wow, I could probably, compete in this. So I tried, I put in my application and yeah.
So you seem to get to the top pretty smoothly. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. So Miss World America is an organization. It's the oldest pageant in the world, and it's very popular in other countries, especially Asia, actually, but it's not that popular in the U.S. So this is still sort of small, but we had to put in an application, a resume, volunteer hours, a video submission, and an interview. So that's how they selected me.
And why do you think you qualified for the crown?
Yeah, so I think I'm very outgoing, and I know how to convey my message properly. I told them what my stance was, and my original statement was that, I want everyone to be empowered with their voices and have their voices heard, no matter if you're a liberal or a conservative.
Do you think your point came across in that competition?
I don't think so, because if it did come across, they wouldn't have decrowned me in the first place.
So can you explain exactly what happened afterwards?
Yeah, so I was officially crowned on Sunday. They announced it on social media on Wednesday. And then the day after, they sent me the messages and emails. They told me that my social media, on Twitter specifically, it was racist, Islamophobic. But I declined all of those things. And they never even gave me a chance to explain. They just, sent me the email saying that I was not allowed to participate anymore.
So when you got this message, how did you feel?
When I first got the email, I was devastated. This is my first time competing in a pageant ever, and I wanted this experience to go well. But I got the message, and I cried. But then this turned out to be a really positive thing because, I have a lot of support from everyone now, and I've been able to tell my message to a lot of news networks.
Can you explain why they mentioned your comments on black crime? Could you explain what actually happened there?
Yeah, so the black on black crime community statistics I posted, it was actually in response to another person. And that person has tweeted multiple times about how all cops are bad people, how they should be basically all fired because they hurt innocent black people. And I said, that's not true. Most black on black violence is caused by other black people. And so, people took that out of context. They didn't read the full conversation, and that's why they thought I was racist.
Nowadays, a lot of people are afraid to touch this issue. Why did you feel confident speaking about it?
I wanted to point that out because a lot of facts and statistics, they're accurate, but people are so afraid to talk about them. And I think that we should really face the reality of talking about things we're not comfortable with in order for there to be change. And so, I did that, and I've always been outspoken and loud about my opinions. So that was just one of them.
And what was the Twitter incident with the hijab about?
So when I was back in Florida, I transferred here to Michigan in December, I believe. And when I was back in Florida, I walked past a booth that said try on a hijab. And a girl asked me, do you want to try on a hijab? And I said, no, no, thank you. And I walked to class. Later on, I posted on Twitter saying, this is not a fashion accessory. It's a religious garment. And, 2 years ago in Saudi Arabia, women were just legalized to drive. So it shows how, for me, oppressive the regime is, especially in Islamic countries. But that tweet got taken out of context saying that I was Islamophobic or anti-Muslim, which is not true.
So when you say it's not a garment, but they're trying to have people try it on, why do you think they're doing that?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that for me, for example, if someone was Catholic, right, I wouldn't want everyone to try on a Catholic rosary because it's my religion. It's my sacred religion. I don't want to share that with anyone else unless they're Catholic too. So I think that, it was sort of weird seeing that happen. That's why I was so surprised by it, and that's why I talked about it online.
Can you tell us where your thoughts and beliefs come from?
I'm not really sure, actually. I think ever since high school, I've been conservative. And I think those beliefs stemmed from high school, and it just carried along with me.
Was this because of something you learned in school or just from your family?
Yeah, so actually in high school, when I was younger, I was a big fan of Obama, actually. But when I was a fan of Obama, the thing that really struck me, later on in years is that I was a fan of Obama not because of his policies, but because of, his race, his popularity, the media, and the bandwagon of all my friends saying they loved Obama. So I found out that if you look at statistics, if you look, do your research online, you'll see that a lot of my policies actually lean right. So I was like, oh, wow, maybe I should be a conservative instead of liberal.
How did you realize you were more of a conservative?
What triggered me to start looking into that is in high school, I've heard a lot of my friends, people around me talk about various topics and issues. And one time I think that I heard something and I was like, oh, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't click together in place. And so I looked it up online and yeah, that wasn't right. And they were just telling people baseless facts and it wasn't even real. So I looked online, searched for myself and saw that, and in order to find the truth about something, you should really research it on your own.
So usually in the Asian community, especially in Chinese families, they teach their kids to really focus on academics and education, and usually not to get involved in politics. What did your parents think about all of this?
Yeah, so my parents, they still really want me to focus on school. Every day they say, hey, don't let this get to your head. You have to focus on education. And, I actually really appreciate my parents and how they are very open to me finding what I like and not just based on school. So I thank my parents for, being able to let me decide for myself what I want to do. They're still very focused on school, obviously. They tell me every day to focus on school, but they allow me to decide which hobbies I like, what I have a passion in, instead of forcing me to do one specific thing.
How did they react to you becoming a political science major?
Of course, every Asian parent wants me to be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. But, I told my parents, I said, if I go to these jobs, of course I'll make, money and stuff, but I wouldn't be happy doing it. So they support me with my passion.
Can I ask what your parents do for a living?
Yeah, my parents are business owners. They have multiple businesses in Florida. So they work very hard with their businesses. So I'm glad that, they got us to where we are now.
Also, what part of China did your parents come from?
Shandong, Qingdao.
So another question is, what about the liberal education today in college? What do you think about that now?
Yeah, so actually Ann Arbor is one of the most, liberal cities in the U.S. And a lot of my teachers, when I first came to Michigan, they were very liberal. But it's just really, really fun to debate them in class and see their faces when you actually know what you're talking about. So, of course, they don't like that because I always, sometimes embarrass them too. But, I like to think that when you are in a liberal setting and you hear their talking points and what they believe in and what they stand for, you could debate them better because you learn their ways.
Can you give us a few examples of debating in these liberal classes?
I think there was an example, I'm not too sure, but one time there was a women's studies class that we were required to take, and the professor was talking about how there were so many injustices of, this is actually the police brutality thing, how they were talking about cops always, killing innocent Black people. And I told them, I'm saying, where did you find the statistics? There's a lot of videos of that happening, but where is the actual facts and numbers? And they couldn't give me an answer.
And how did you learn all of the facts on your own?
I learned because I'm actually really passionate in, this subject. I follow a lot of conservative and liberal articles and news sites just so I could get information from both sides, so I could look at it with an unbiased view. Very often, conservatives and liberals, they only look at news articles from one party. And I don't think that's right. I lean conservative, but I'm very level-headed when it comes to what information is factually inaccurate and accurate.
So from your point of view, is the campus today leaning too much to one side?
Yes, I think it is. The reason why I think so, this is my philosophy, is that when you're educated on the horrors of what's happening around the world, you become more sensitive in emotion for a lot of injustices. And I feel like that's why people are more liberal, because liberals tend to be more emotional rather than conservatives. But then as conservatives, we have to tell them, hey, we get your emotions. We understand you, and we feel those emotions too. We're sad for the injustices happening too. We have to also look at what's actually happening in the world instead of looking at one point of view.
Could you also explain what are some of the misconceptions that liberals seem to have right now?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things, I get this every day, this comment every day, is that, Trump is going to deport you back to China. It's so ridiculous how people don't understand the difference between illegal and legal immigration. I get that comment every day, and I said, you're just proving that you're racist. It's not that we're racist, it's that you're racist. And that, you should really learn the difference between those words. So that's one of the biggest issues I have every day, and people comment on that every day on my profile.
So some people are saying that President Trump hates China and that it will be bad for the Chinese people with him in office. What do you think about this issue?
So I think that, obviously he doesn't necessarily hate Chinese people. It's not the people that he hates. I think that it's the government. And, even as a Chinese immigrant myself, I don't like the government in China too. I talk about it all the time. I think that it's unfair how the people are treated there and the censorship that's going on. So, if I was president, I would talk about other countries' problems too. And just because he talks about the country doesn't mean he refers to the people.
Do you find this type of issue exists among your Asian community and also with your family?
I actually think a lot of older generations of the Chinese community actually are very conservative. I feel like the conservative values really align with our Asian morals and values too. So it's really hard for me to wrap my mind around how some Asian Americans are actually liberal. But, I think that no matter what it is, we must have a dialogue and talk and have a conversation about what we believe in and what we don't believe in, just so we could compare sides and see which one's right or wrong.
So since we're talking about Trump, what do you actually think about President Trump?
I think he's very brave of speaking up for what he believes in. And for me, a lot of his things, are taken out of context. The media cuts short clips of what his speeches are and, takes them completely out of context. He's a really good president. He understands what America needs. I love his policies, and he's been doing really good as president. So I just hope that he gets, the next term too.
When did you start to support him?
I supported him in my junior year of high school. So when I was probably 17, I supported him. I started campaigning for him 2016, I think so.
So in your opinion, why was Trump elected?
I think a lot of people were really, really tired of having a career politician as their president, because a lot of career politicians, they only look out for, their careers. And I think President Trump came up to society as a businessman. So he understands numbers. He understands how the world works. And, before he got elected, he was never frowned upon by the media. He was never called a racist. And he had many, black friends and black allies. And now, since he's elected, people are just calling him racist and all these names, and they have no term to call him that.
So talking about racism, you are now also being labeled as a racist. So is this something you now understand how Trump may be feeling?
Yes, for sure. I got it to a very much smaller level than what he got. So I couldn't imagine what he went through. But my advice for anyone who experiences this situation is that you just really got to ignore all the bad negative comments, because there's so many positive comments compared to the negative ones. And, in order for you to live, a happy life, mentally well life, you have to just stick to the positives.
And what do you think racism really means?
I think the word racism gets thrown around a lot. People are always accused of being racist. And because we throw around that word so often, the value of the word gets diminished and decreased. And so when someone actually experiences real racism, a lot of people won't believe them because we throw around the word racist a lot. So it's I just think we should be more careful with that word too.
And why do you think the liberals are using this word to attack people with?
I think that they're using this word a lot is because they can't find another way to convey their emotions without attacking someone. So as I said earlier, we should really have another dialogue and, a lot of conversation, and not just use really emotional language to convey our message.
So people think that President Trump is a white supremacist. Can you understand why people are thinking this way now?
Yeah, I get why they think that way. And I think that it's because of the media. All the headlines are, Trump is this, Trump is that. And, I just always suggest people to look, at his full speeches, at his full conversations instead of a clip. And that's exactly what happened to me too. People looked at, one part of my tweet and not the full conversation, and they got a wrong assumption about me.
Are there any other misconceptions that liberals have about Trump?
Another example is that maybe the camps, or they call them cages, that they put the immigrants in that come over here illegally. Those camps were done by the Obama era. That happened when Obama was in office too. And people are giving Trump a bad time about it because of that. He's just currently president. So people should know that Obama was the one who made those cages, so to speak. And also people are saying that Trump is ripping families apart. If someone in the U.S., if a family in the U.S., a parent gets into a crime, does something illegal, he's going to be ripped away from his children too if they do something illegal. So it's just logic.
So right now, a lot of conservatives are worried about socialism and communism coming into America, especially with the Socialist Democratic Party. What do you think about this?
A lot of Democratic candidates right now who are wanting to run against Trump during the next election, they have a lot of policies that do resemble socialism and communism. We have to understand that America wasn't founded on that. America was founded on freedom, and less was the initial founding fathers' idea. And for them to twist something around and make America some other country isn't okay. If you ever have a problem with how America is ran fundamentally, just leave, just move. You shouldn't change your country to another country.
So to those candidates who are running on the socialist platform, what do you think, or why do you think they got to this stage?
I think that we got to this stage because of misconceptions. There's a lot of people who don't know history, and there's a lot of people who don't know what people actually from communism or socialist countries experienced. And, all the people who are advocating for socialism and communism have never experienced that in another country. And so they should really take into account what people actually say about their experiences and read history books and actually learn about the dangers of socialism and communism.
And how did you learn about socialism and communism?
So I'm really glad that I go to a pretty good school and, I read a lot of history about what happened. Also, I hear stories from my parents and my grandparents all the time about China. And I talk to my friends who came from Venezuela and immigrated here and talk to me about the horrors of Venezuela. So I get a lot of angles from every side of the story and just read a lot.
Some Chinese Americans have gone through socialism and communism in China, and when they speak about it, they will start to defend China because it's considered their homeland. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think that when you're in China, I think you're blinded by the government's propaganda a lot. And when you come to the U.S., you basically open your eyes and see information for ways that they are actually happening. And so I love China's people. I love the country, but I don't love the government. And I think that it's okay to criticize a government even though you love the country.
What do you think about the Democratic candidates that are going against Trump this year?
I actually watched the Democratic debate a month ago, I think. And a lot of them, they were too afraid to not say things that people actually wanted them to say, if that makes sense. I think that they wanted to pander to the audience way more. There was actually a question asked by one of the hosts saying, what is the biggest threat to America right now? And one of the candidates said Trump. And I said, really? Is that what you're going to say? So I think that people don't even have a stance. They just want to bash Trump. They just want to get him out of office. And I think that's so ridiculous.
So now some Chinese Americans are starting to get into politics. What do you think about this now?
I'm glad that Chinese Americans or Asian Americans are now participating more in campaigns and elections and voting. I think that for a long time, we just knew that we just had to work hard to gain success. But now we know how to work smarter too. Voting actually does help. And although, our parents and stuff work really, really hard, we have to also learn that some policies do affect us, even though we do work hard. So it's great that, Asian Americans are now participating in campaigns and volunteering and really watching the news.
What would you like to tell other Chinese Americans about what is happening in the U.S. and how this will affect them?
Chinese Americans should really, I know there's a lot of WeChat groups right now of politics and campaigning for the president and talking about news and their opinions. And I think that's a really good start. Obviously, we should do a lot more. There's only a certain group. Chinese Americans for Trump is a really, really big group right now. But that's only, one aspect. There should be so much more volunteers campaigning and really listening to America's needs.
And what is your plan going forward?
I'm not too sure. I guess I'll see where life leads me. But, a year ago, I was planning to go to law school right after my political science degree or get a master's in political science just so I could advance my career to whatever I'm doing. But I really like how I'm doing political commentary online right now. I'm so glad that this story brought a larger audience to me for me to, explain everything and tell them, what I believe in and what I think is right. So, I'm just really glad that this happened.
Thank you, Kathy, for talking to us today, and good luck.
Thank you. Bye.
This is America Daily, bringing you the best in truthful news updates and in-depth reports happening now.